welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Molly. I'm currently in our guest bedroom slash my beauty parlor. This is where I get ready every morning because I need to grab a few things that I want to bring downstairs and find a home for in the office. So last year we worked on a 6-month project building custom built-ins for my office. If you missed those videos, I will link to them here so you can catch up on that project. But now we are working on organizing the space and the closet, which I've totally neglected. The 2 closets in the guest room are kind of our overflow storage, so I've put things that I didn't have space for previously in the office up here, including my sewing machine and my Cricut machine, and I want to bring those downstairs so that I can find a place for them, because I think if they're easier to get to, I will be more likely to use them. And we have a sewing project that we need to work on. Of course, the 2 things that I wanted to bring down are the biggest and heaviest of them all, but I just feel like if I'm gonna keep them up in that closet and forget I have them half the time, then why have them at all? And you can do so much with the Cricut, and I love the Cricut. I used to use it all the time, but it's just not in a place that I can easily set it up and connect to my computer. Whew, as I'm out of breath. What I would like to do is put the Cricut on this upper shelf in the built-in, and that way it's right in my face, for one, and it's in an easy place that I can just slide it off the shelf and either print something on the desk here or move it to the dining room table if I need to print something bigger. I think the sewing machine I'll probably find a place for on the floor here, whether it's underneath this lower shelf or somewhere in the back on that wire shelf. At least having the sewing machine down here will be easier to reach for, easier to set up, and less carrying it up and down the stairs, which it's kind of heavy, so I'm out of breath, as you can tell, and it would be nice to not have to do that regularly. I love how this is coming to life. It's just 2 little machines, but it feels like they were meant to be here, and that makes me happy. Since we have a little space to the left of the Cricut, I think that would be a good place to store like some of the accessories, like these cords, and also the vinyl rolls, maybe the mats, I'm not sure. I have a whole bunch of different size cutting mats that go through the machine, so I might be able to like lean them up against the back wall. I did go to Target yesterday and buy a whole bunch of random containers, bins, and things that we could use to organize all of this stuff. So I have this bin of all of my vinyl rolls, and it's worked fine, but there's a ton of extra space in this bin, and I think we can reuse it for something else instead. So one of the bin styles I got from Target were these like tall, skinny plastic storage bins. I liked that they had a little more vertical height so that, you know, they wouldn't like tip over or things wouldn't flop out, but they were kind of skinny, so I could slide them into more narrow spaces. So I'm thinking I can just use one of these to fit next to the Cricut, and I should be able to fit all of the vinyl in here. Now that we have these 2 shelves sorted, the next thing I want to work on is sewing the cabinets that we're going to attach to the inside of the doors. So when we close the doors, we can actually hide the mess and we don't have to see it through the glass. If these shelves were perfectly organized and they had matchy-matchy bins and you couldn't see any of the junk, like, you know, the rolls of vinyl, then the glass would be fine. But I've always kind of had this vision to add a fun pattern through curtains, and it would also hide all the stuff behind the doors. If you're all caught up on last week's vlog, you know that finding the right fabric for these cabinet doors has been a journey. I thought in my head I knew exactly what I wanted. I spent way too much time trying to find something online, finally ordered it, and I got it in the mail, and I don't love it. I don't love it. It's not that the pattern isn't great. I think it could be used for other things, but next to this like warmer sagey green, I just don't feel like it works. There's a little bit of that in the pattern, like in these like branches, but it's not enough to like tie it in, and this is just a big fat no for me. So I went back to the drawing board and I was like, okay, maybe I need to see the fabric in person. I had already been to Joann's. I didn't really like anything there, so I went to Hobby Lobby and I picked up this cute little ditzy floral fabric, and I love it. I think it's super cute. I hung it behind the doors kind of like this for a few days to just like sit with it and see what I thought. And while I do think it works, the greens in this are the right color. I love the blue tie-in. I think that's kind of fun. It's just still not right. It's still not right. It was too cute. The pattern, I think, is just a little too small, and I had a very specific vision in mind, and like this just wasn't it. So we moved on to option number 3. And option number 3 was actually a sheet set from Target. After I rolled that one out, I was like thinking in my head and racking my brain, where are there patterns I've seen that I like? Like, could I think outside the box? Does it have to be cut fabric from like a fabric store? And I remembered that Target had a whole bunch of sheet sets that I've always loved. I think the patterns are really refined and they're somewhat neutral, or they can kind of like mix in with different decor styles. And I found this sort of like sagey olive green vine pattern, which I love. I know it's more green, but I think it's neutral and it works well with everything we have. So it continues to maintain this blank slate, so I can add really anything when it comes to art or pick any kind of rug that I love and not feel pigeonholed by the fabric I've selected for the cabinet doors. So I bought the extra long twin sets. I'm going to probably cut up the flat sheet. I will save the pillowcases because I'll use those, you know, upstairs in the guest bedroom or something, and then I can save whatever fabric I don't use from this for future projects. But this is a good lesson in not compromising and thinking outside the box. I wasn't loving what I was picking out, and I knew that wasn't right, and I knew that if I moved forward with that, I would not be happy. And there are a lot of things out there, like sheets, that are fabric, that are kind of inexpensive when it comes to yardage, that you can use for other things. Yes, they may be intended for your bed, but it's essentially just a couple yards of fabric that you can cut up and turn into anything. So now that we have the fabric, we can actually make the curtains, but before we make the curtains, in order to get the right measurements, I need to install some curtain rods. To make the curtain rods, I'm just using a 3/8 inch dowel and some cup hooks. I picked gold because I like gold. The cup hooks will just slide over the dowel and hold the dowel in place. I'll screw one at the top and one at the bottom, and then I can take the measurement from top to bottom to get the final height that I need for the curtain. I will sew a little pocket on the top and bottom of the curtain that will just slide over the dowel, and then in theory, should be an easy thing to install. First one is installed. So you can see I've got a cup hook on the left and the right, and then my dowel is just resting in there. The one thing I did do is create a little notch on each end, and that way when we set it up here in the cup hooks, it doesn't just like slide out. I'm trying to do this one-handed. So it kind of like sets in that notch, and when I wiggle it back and forth, it doesn't just pop out. But we can still easily lift it and slide it out if we want to replace the curtain or wash the curtain or do anything like that. All of the bottom doors now have rods installed. I need to sand this one a little bit just to get rid of the orange. And then this one has the same. Now I need to measure between the top and bottom rod. Both doors are the same. I did break out the measuring tape to make sure they were consistent. That way when I'm sewing the two curtains, they can be the exact same size and I don't have to have separate left and right curtains. The flat sheet is 68 inches wide. We want double the width of our door for each curtain, so we have a little bit of a ruffle when we cinch the fabric together. The doors are 15.5 inches wide, so that means we want about 31 inches of fabric. If I cut this in half, it will give us 34 inches, so we have a little bit of extra wiggle room, and that's perfectly fine. The finished length needs to be 34 inches, but we have to fold over some fabric to create a pocket on the top and bottom. So I'm going to cut this probably at about 38 inches, and that way we can save all this extra fabric before we cut it in half for something else. Now we've got our rectangle, so what I'm going to start doing is pinning up the edges to sew over this raw edge. Once that's stitched, then I'll flip it over again to create a nice clean seam that matches the one that was already sewed. Once we have our seams cleaned up, then we can create our pocket. So the one edge with the seam, I'll just fold over and sew. And then the raw edge down here, I'll do the same thing I did for the side. I'll fold it over once to sew that raw edge and then flip it over again to create the pocket. So now it's just lots of pinning and stitching, but all relatively easy and straight lines. We officially have two curtains sewed. They're just a big old rectangle, but they each have little rod pockets at the top and bottom, so I can slide the rods we installed on and then just scrunch all the fabric together so it creates a nice pleat when you see it through the glass. I ended up turning these cup hooks at the bottom of the doors so that when we install the curtain and the rod is through here, the tension of the curtain is allowing this to like stop. If I flip these the other way and there's that little gap, I think the rod would just pop out and the curtain wouldn't be nice and taut and create those pleats. So if you're doing something like this, consider rotating these. It'll just create a tighter fit. Now we cross our fingers and hope this fits. Okay, tell me you're loving these as much as I am. How flipping cute. This is exactly what the built-ins needed. I'm so glad I went with my gut and did the glass doors because I can't even imagine these as solid wood painted doors now. It just adds so much character and texture. Ah, It's perfect. I will be interested to see what the fabric looks like in the morning because you can see it's kind of reading a little bit cooler and the walls are such a creamy white that I think it starts to make that feel a lot brighter. Either way, I'm still very happy with them. Good morning. Looking at the curtains in the daylight now. I knew they were gonna look a little bit different when I woke up, but they are giving off a little bit of a blue tone. I think it's just the bright white in the fabric. Everything in this room, like the walls and even just like some of the stuff I have on my desk, like the lamp and the desk mat, are more of a creamy white, and this is more of a true white. So comparatively, it looks a little blue. One thing I might try in the future is doing a tea stain on the fabric. So all you do is just soak the fabric in a bin or a bucket of tea and it will absorb some of that color. So you can do it for just a little bit of time if you want a little bit of warmth, or longer if you want them to be a little more brown. So I'll trial it on some scraps of fabric first, but that might help us like tie them in a little bit better. It's fine for now. I'm not gonna spiral on it because I totally would. I think they're perfectly fine, but it'll be a fun little DIY project we can play around with in the future. I love all the pleating. I'm glad I doubled the width and a little extra because I think it just made it nice and bunchy. If it wasn't as pleated, it would look kind of flat, but I'm really happy with how that came out. You can see it's getting a little smushed here, right in the middle, because it's pressing up against that shelf. But I think it's fairly subtle, so it's not like super obvious that that's happening. I need to run to Home Depot to get one more dowel to finish the curtain rods on these doors. I thought I had enough, but I ended up cutting these a little bit too short, so I need to do that. And then I need to start organizing all of the stuff out here. I have things everywhere. I just keep finding things in different closets and drawers that I want to put in my office. So these piles are growing. That's all for this video. I'm going to keep working on the curtains so I can finish the upper cabinet doors and then get to work on organizing everything and moving it back into the closet so I can put together a fun office organization video for you. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe for future updates, and click that bell notification if you want to be notified for any future uploads. Share it with a friend if you think it's something they'd like, and I will catch up with you in the next video.